Former Chief of State Protocol Bruce Koloane is expected to continue his testimony at the State Capture Commission of Inquiry in Johannesburg this morning. Yesterday's proceedings were adjourned to give Koloane and his legal counsel time to go through statements and recordings implicating him in the Gupta wedding plane lending in 2013. Earlier, Koloane denied approving the lending of the Gupta aircraft, saying he had no authority to issue such an instruction. For a recap of what we can and also what we can expect today, we're now joined in the studio by my colleague Manqoba Mchunu. Manqoba, very good morning to you. What an unfolding of events. Everybody was anticipating this appearance, and here we are.
Of course, Bruce Koloane coming onto the stand yesterday, Desiree, to give his side of the story. Of course, we've heard testimony implicating him from other witnesses. You recall yesterday we played a clip of Nonkululeko Sindane, the former Director General of the Justice Department, also was part of those who probed the incident at the Waterkloof Air Base. And of course, all of them have implicated one way or the other Bruce Koloane as being the one who issued those instructions, as being the one who actually approved the flight clearance of that Gupta plane to land there, and even went on a site inspection at the airport to ensure that everything was running smoothly. But of course, we expected a lot from Bruce Koloane, but of course one of those expectations was that of course he's going to try and exonerate himself. He's going to try also and tell his side of the story that he's not directly involved, is not implicated as other witnesses claim. So that's what we've heard so far from Bruce Koloane, saying that he doesn't have any authority to actually call for the landing of the plane. He says that basically, legally, he is not duty bound, or there is no obligation he has in order to call or to instruct other departments, especially the Defense Department, for such a landing to take place at that particular airport. What he says, Desiree, is that what they are simply is just a conduit, or just more like a vehicle or a post office, he puts it in his own words, where there will be the communication between the Indian High Commission or whichever commission is coming to the country and the particular department, this time being the Defence Force, which was meant to approve this particular landing. Let's take a listen to what he said about this.
I was alive to the realities in terms of procedures and processes, that I had no legal mandate whatsoever to dictate to any government department. Even when we had an interdepartmental meeting, I could not dictate to the police, although I was the chair of the meeting. I will say to them, I know you have a role to play to provide security. What is your plan? Have you identified people? Who are the names so we can put them in the list? But I did not ever give myself powers that I never have, because I knew my limitations in terms of the statutes, and there is no way I would have actually given instruction that I order an official from another department to issue, when also there are processes, horizontal processes in that department that must be followed.
So again, this takes us back to Ben Martin's testimony, where he said it was not within his ambit. Here's Bruce Koloane saying the same thing again. So I suppose the question remains, who gave the instruction?
Well, it's difficult at this point to ascertain, because the initial investigation and testimony that we've heard from the likes of Major Ntsishi, who also testified last week, was at the command post at Waterkloof, is that email that was sent to the Defence Force giving the approval for the clearance was actually from Koloane himself. But he says that, of course, he denies this. He says that he was
checking on the process.
He was checking on the process. He wanted to know how far the process was, because there was a 6-day delay in them responding. So he's saying that he just wanted to put pressure on them to expedite the process, not actually that he gave the instruction that they should go ahead with clearing this plane, which of course contradicts what has been said before by those officials from the Defence Force, who insist that it was in fact Koloane himself that went ahead to say that the plane must be cleared to land at the airport. So at this point, it's not clear, because we know also the report also exonerated the former president, President Jacob Zuma himself, Koloane, giving testimony yesterday, saying that there is no way that the president was involved. He had never said, even uttered the words that number one was involved in this. So it seems at this point, everybody is just passing the buck, and nobody is clearly taking
the problem with that passing the buck is that Ambassador Gupta has now left the country. And are there chances he's going to be asked by the Commission to come back to clarify what his request, his actual request to the Defence Force was?
Well, Desiree, the Commission is playing its cards very close to his chest. At this point, we don't know who's the next witness, but we do know that the theme that they are focusing on currently is the issue of that controversial Gupta plane landing at Waterkloof. So as to which witnesses will be called at this stage, we're not sure. We only get to know maybe the night before that happened. So at this point, we do know that there was a witness that was meant to come today. Who it was, we don't know at this point. But what we do know is that it's also related to this particular event that took place at the Gupta landing. But of course, we've had many testimonies, including that of Ambassador Jerry Machila yesterday.
Absolutely, that was the first testimony. That's where we should have started, actually.
At the time when this Gupta plane was meant to land, or landed. And in fact, he says he only learned from the news.
His testimony sounded very procedural. Yes. It didn't feel like he had anything to reveal.
In fact, he says that he only learned about it after it had happened. So prior to that, he had no knowledge. He only learned, like you remember, Ben Martin's also saying that I only learned from the news when hearing newspaper reports and reading newspaper reports that this has actually happened. Yeah. So he says he was equally surprised. He didn't know about the initial plan to land the plane there. And so he says that he found it very strange that that happened. And of course, he had to be part of the investigation as well from the defense side, in fact, from the government side, and take sanctions against Koloane, who was found by that report to have been the key figure in that report. But he says this was really unwarranted. You know, there was not, in the words of almost Nonkululeko Sindane, but not directly, to say that, you know, it's an incident that kind of shamed the country. Let's take a listen to what he had to say about this wedding that took place in the country and the landing, particularly at Waterkloof.
If this was a real wedding party, it ought to
which it was, isn't
which
it?
It was. It would have landed in a civilian airport.
Yes.
In that case, it's just a wedding party.
Yeah.
But once you go to a military base,
yes,
the civilian part goes away, because now you are coming to a very exclusive area, a sensitive security area. So you need to provide documentation why you come to a highly secured area in this way. But we do have a lot of high-profile weddings which are not aware South Africans, because they don't create a hype. We have a lot of people who come and marry here, who come and below the radar. It's a lot of high-profile people coming here. But they don't attract attention because it's low profile. So you could have...
But do they go to Waterkloof?
No.
They don't?
They don't go to Waterkloof.
Yes.
Yeah. Waterkloof, they can go if it's a requirement by special arrangements.
Yes.
But it will be searched, and it's very few and far apart.
Yes.
Manqoba, when you consider Ambassador Machila's seniority, what is the significance of his inputs yesterday?
Well, of course, he was going through procedures and the protocol that is necessary for such a foreign trip to happen, and saying that, you know, in this instance, there were some of the things that were flouted to say with regards to issues like the note verbal, which is a document that is supposed to be sent by the country.
Document, yeah.
Yes, supposed to send by the country to the country that they intend to visit, really detailing what the visit is about, who is coming, and what are they here for. What's the official business that they're coming here? What warrants them, and what benefit will it be for the country? So those procedures, of course, we know that a note verbal was not there in this case, but despite that, that clearance was given. So it's basically taking us through the procedure. But also interestingly, Desiree also spoke about what, how impeccable Koloane was as a diplomat, speaking about his time when he was in Japan and trying to, foster trade relations between Japan and South Africa, and saying that, that takes an extraordinary South African to do, because he went to a country where they don't even understand the language, they don't speak English, but to foster those relations. So he really said he was a brilliant or an extraordinary ambassador, as he had put it. So basically saying that, even though this happened, Koloane was still a good diplomat, but he had to take the sanctions against him because of what had transpired at Waterkloof Air Base.
What can we expect today?
Well, today we recall, Desiree, that Koloane had raised an issue that, of course, is being prejudiced by the testimony because he can't answer some of the questions, he can't recall. It's been 6 years, and he says that, of course, there are some documents that the state had not given to him to have access to, which he's expected to answer questions to. So he's saying, basically feels like his rights are being, violated in this way, that he cannot provide all the answers and he cannot recall. So he's basically asked for the conversation, the tape conversations that had been cited before by Nonkululeko Sindane, where apparently he refers to number 1 in those tape recordings. And of course, he will be asked about them. So he says he wants more time to actually listen to them. So yesterday, the judge then said he must be given those tape recorders to listen, or those tapes to listen. And then he'll indicate today whether he'll be willing to continue with the testimony or whether he'll need more time to actually prepare for his testimony. So he can either go on with his testimony today or ask for a postponement. We're here to find out what will happen today.
Manqoba, thank you for that update. What time do proceedings start today?
They'll start at 10 o'clock.
Stunning. All right, thank you so much there to our colleague Manqoba Mchunu. The United